Jim Miller here, National Wrestling Hall of Fame, Dan Gable Museum. I'm here in the Charles City High School wrestling room where I coached about 40 years ago. And it actually looks pretty darn good. It's pretty cool. Bring back a lot of memories. And my book, the new book came out, Do It Anyway. There's a lot of Charles City stories in the book. And when I was here, and also some when I wasn't later on. So Do It Anyway is pretty much, hey man, some of the things you got to do in life aren't things you want to do. You can't just be good at the things you want to do. You got to be willing to do the things that you know you need to do to accomplish your goals, to climb the ladder, to get what you want, so forth. And so I talk a lot about that, but Wendy, this is Wendy Luft, and I'm going to let her tell her story, but Wendy has 3 children. The oldest was Logan, who unfortunately passed away at age 15, and it crushed this whole community and beyond, the community and beyond. So Wendy wrote a powerful passage that I asked her if we could use in the book, and she said yeah. And maybe I'll start with, and we call it Do It Anyway 2.0. Because most of us talk about do it anyway, hey, get off the couch and something like that, you know. But Wendy, this was one of the toughest things as a parent can do. But welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm going to give you the book and what you started. Why don't you lead into that by maybe a little bit, it was July 5th, I know, that Logan passed away. And he was a freshman, going to be a freshman coming in Charles City. This would have been his senior year. And I'll let you go from there.
Yeah. So we were at 4th of July parade downtown, and Logan ended up leaving afterwards with some of his friends, and went out to a buddy's house, and they were having fireworks and played in the river and four-wheeling and whatnot. And it just happened that he was a passenger in an ATV, kind of like a gator machine. Yeah. And the kid turned too sharply, and the machine flipped, and it actually crushed him. So he went to the hospital up in Mayo Clinic, and he ended up passing away that following day. But the amazing part of his story ended up being that because of the events and how he passed away, they were able to harvest his organs, and he became an organ donor to 5 individuals and ultimately saved their lives. Mm-hmm. So for us, as tragic as the event was, we've learned to focus on the good that came out of it.
Mm-hmm. And Logan had told you he wanted to be an organ donor?
Yeah, so when he was 14, he took his driver's permit class here at Charles City. And one of the things that they discussed was being an organ donor and choosing to have that on your license. And he came home and asked more about the information of being an organ donor, because some of his buddies had said, you know, is that really something we want to do? And so he asked us about it, and as a family we sat down and talked about it, and I explained what it was and how you could help save somebody's life, and he was like, absolutely, why would you not do that? Mm-hmm. And so we had that conversation not even 6 months before this accident. So it's crazy to think that that was part of his plan. But when we left Mayo Clinic and came home, the community was so amazing. In fact, by the time that we hit the Iowa border, there were people standing on the sides of roads, people with signs. We went through Cresco, New Hampton. All along the way, there were people waiting to honor him to come back home. And we met at the airport, and they led Logan, the entire AMR, ambulance, the fire department, police department, led him back into town to the funeral home. And by the time we arrived, there were still people lining up 5 miles out of town. That's how many people came to honor him, to bring him back. So it was a big event. Mm-hmm. And that was emotional for us, because we were thinking, how can we have the strength and the energy to face what's about to happen the following day of his funeral? And I remember getting out of bed that morning, the day of his funeral, and I was sitting on the edge of the bed, and I told Lenny, I just started to cry, and I just said, I cannot do this. I can't face today. There's no way I can go do this. I cannot go out in front of all these people and celebrate his life. I'm not ready for that, and I don't want to do it. And as I sat there, I was so overwhelmed with the feeling that Logan would say, do it anyways. Mm-hmm. Because at practice, every single day, his coaches would tell him, do it anyways. You didn't want to practice, you did it anyway. You didn't want to show up, you did it anyway. If it was a tough day, you did it anyway. And so it got to be kind of a funny thing around our family that if there was ever an event that we didn't want to do, especially like him picking up his room or cleaning or doing things that I wanted him to do, it was do it anyways. And so as I was sitting there that day, it was the first thing that came to my mind. And I just pulled myself together and I'm like, all right, let's go. And so I quick snapped that message on my phone. I typed it up and sent it out and tweeted it, I guess, I think that day.
Okay.
And I got a lot of response from that because a lot of people knew what I was talking about.
If you don't mind, if you're willing to read it, it'd be great.
So I think on the year anniversary of that, I wrote this on my Facebook page, and that's when you contacted me.
Yeah.
Over the past several years, I have spent countless hours driving our oldest son thousands of miles to wrestling practices, camps, and tournaments. I always stuck around just to watch and listen. I enjoyed it mostly because it gave me an avenue in which to connect with my child. But more importantly, his dad didn't wrestle, and I had very little knowledge of the sport, so I just wanted to learn. I needed to be able to say the right thing and know how to motivate him when he needed me. Our club coach was a product of the Wartburg wrestling legend Jim Miller, and would often share do-it-anyway mentality. I would find myself repeating that phrase to Logan on days he didn't want to go to school because his body was sore, or following a tough tournament weekend, or just I wanted him to clean his room. Taking a deep interest in wrestling gave Logan and me a way to communicate. I followed the same social media outlets as he did, so I could become well-versed on his favorite college wrestlers. We would sit on the couch, and we would start talking about some amazing move that he had watched that day on Instagram or on Twitter, and I had usually already seen the post, and he would just smile because his mom was just that cool. I would watch Logan time and time again take a tough loss, knowing how bad it hurt emotionally and sometimes physically. It seemed the harder he worked and the more he invested, the tougher the losses were. It always amazed me that I would try to come up with some right words to say on our long rides home, and he would end up consoling me and giving this amazing motivational talk about how next time he would do better. I would fight back the tears and I would just smile. On the morning of Logan's funeral, I remember getting out of bed and absolutely not wanting to face that day. This was the day I would say goodbye to our sweet teenager. I didn't want to do it. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. But almost instantly, I thought about Coach Miller and do it anyways. I remember our club coach, Coach Jamie Gray, repeatedly telling his wrestlers there will be times in our life where we don't want to do something. Times we want to quit, days where we'll question why we wrestle. But never let your mind beat you. Pick yourself up and fight through it. There have been many dark days I have faced, wondering how I could live another day without our Logan. The pain I feel when I miss my son is brutal. It's fierce. It's nothing, and nothing can make it go away. On those tough days that I just don't think that I'm strong enough to fight through it, I think about what Coach Miller would say. I think about what Logan would say. And I remember what wrestling has taught me. Life is not easy. We may face adversity, loss, and even tragedy. We can choose to put our heads down and quit, or choose to fight through it. Get up, face the day, work harder, do better, and even when you feel like you can't, do it anyways.
Thank you.